Welcome to the Coach's Corner. I'm John Cerruto. He's the only head coach that New Providence High School has ever known. He has coached 3 generations of students, he has won 8 state championships, and he is the 4th winningest coach in the state of New Jersey. He is Frank Bottone. Let's go meet Coach Bottone now. Well, Coach Frank Bottone, it's an honor to have you at Coach's Corner.
My pleasure. My pleasure to be here.
Coach, 48 years at one school. That's a heck of a ride. Tell me about the path. How did you get involved with coaching?
Well, when I was in high school, I idolized my high school coach, and I liked what he was doing, and I listened to everything he said, so I got to know all the positions and different assignments for the different players, and I took it from there. And then I went to college and I did the same thing. And I enjoyed playing the game, so if you enjoy playing it, you might as well coach it. So I did. I started coaching as a volunteer coach before I went into the service at Caldwell High School, and then I coached a little bit in the service. And then when I came out, I ended up with coaching at Ted Monica at Madison High School, and that program was down in the dumps, and we had 19 kids, I think, the first year, and Teddy and I built that program up, and then Jack Davies joined the staff, and we had some great people over there. Jack Bicknell did his student teaching under me, ended up being the head coach at Boston College. So there a lot of people influenced what I did, and it's hard to pinpoint for one person.
So now, after your 7 years at Madison, how did you find out about New Providence's job opening? Did they come to you?
At Madison, I was assistant football and head track coach, and they advertised, and Chief Bunnell, who was the athletic director at Caldwell at that time, said to me that New Providence is looking for a football coach. They don't have football. So he said, why don't you apply? So I did, and I drove down to New Providence. I never even knew where it was. At that time, it was just a little crossroad. Now it's built up quite a bit. And I went for an interview there, and then the superintendent came up to Madison and watched me teach. And at that time, I was teaching co-ed volleyball, and he loved it because he hadn't seen it before, because the girls were always separate. And so he said, could you do that at New Providence? I said, sure, no problem, So then I went before the board, and they interviewed me, and the one question I'll always remember that they asked, they said, what would you do if you went 0-9? I said, I'd cut my throat.
You never had to worry about that.
I didn't have to worry about it.
No, fortunately. Well, let's talk about those early years. All right, I know that your first varsity season was 1965?
65 was our first varsity season.
And what was it like during the 60s? When did you start to realize that the program was hitting stride and was going to be an elite?
65 and 66, those two teams were in uncharted waters. I mean, you had Summit, Milburn, Madison, they were all state championship teams. And here we come in there the first 2 years, and we're playing those teams. So, I felt that our kids were learning, and we had some good ball games at that time. And 67, we won our first state championship. Bob Woodruff led that group, and 68, we won a conference champ. But right then, I think I always give credit to the first two teams for starting this and building the tradition that we have now.
Well, you move on through the 70s. At this point, the reputation of New Providence football as an elite team starts to really take hold.
Right. In 72, we had the Alacos, and Summit had Willie Wilson, so we had like a 13,000 crowd at the Thanksgiving game when we played them. Unfortunately, we came up on a short end of the stick, but it was still a great game. And then 74, we won this. We were the only Group 2 school to qualify, so we got the state championship outright. And 76 was an exciting year. It was our first undefeated seed with Ted Blackwell and Kevin Carroll and Glenn Tellman, all those, and Pignio, one of the Anthony Pignio. So
Well, Ted Blackwell goes on and
Ted-
holds the state scoring record for quite some time from that year.
254 points. He held that record for 30 years. And that was 11 games, not 12. So the person who broke it, it's 12 game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Coach, you go on through the decades, and you see the talented players you had and continued to have this past year. What changes did you see at the high school level in the sport of football, from going back to your early beginnings to where you are now?
Well, I think the big thing is the kids are bigger, they're faster, and they're stronger. I mean, all the schools are emphasizing an off-season program with the weightlifting and stuff, and that's the biggest. I know in '76 we were undefeated. We only had one tackle that was 200 pounds. This year we had 3 tackles that were close. One tackle 250 and the others in the 240s. So that was one of the big things that changed, and I think they're exposed to football earlier as the decade came on because of the television and watching the pro games and the college games. So I think that helped make the sport grow.
And the advent, of course, of recreation football.
And recreation, right? Yep. Yeah.
You mentioned the weight room, and over the years, a lot of students are starting to specialize in one sport. And again, you go back to when there was multi-sports were very common.
Right.
What are your feelings about multiple sport athletes versus specialization?
Definitely, it's a plus for. They should do that. They should not focus in on one sport. One of the college coaches said that every time you take a season off or away from he said it takes another 2 or 3 weeks to make up what you've lost. You can't step right up where you were at that level before. But we encourage our kids to play basketball, wrestle, track, everything. And I enjoy going to see them play other sports, see them compete. And I know they like it when they see another coach from another sport come to see them play. And I went to see the first basketball game this year. Ari Catano was my offensive coordinator. So somebody said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I always come to these games." I said, "I either go to wrestling or football, wrestling or basketball in the winter." So I said, "I've been doing that for years. There's nothing new. I like to see the kids compete."
Well, that's neat stuff. Now, I know, Coach, we also talked, previously about different influences in your life. Who are some of the people that you really feel influenced you to be able to do what you do at the level that you are?
Well, I think my high school coach, Bo Verini, was the first to do that. And then my senior year, Bo Verini left and John Brown came in as head coach. And he leaned a lot on me because I was a senior and I was a leader in high school. And I started in high school as a freshman, so I was a 4-letter winner at Caldwell. And I got to call the plays and I got to get in the routine of helping other kids out, so like coaching, coach on the field. And that was one influence. And I started coaching with Ted Monica at Madison, and we built that program up. Jack Davies there. But you see the uniform here. I know Lombardi had some influence on his philosophy and some of his thinkings beyond time. We tell the kids, you're on Lombardi time. So that means you're 5 minutes early or 10 minutes early to our meetings and practice. So those are, and of course, the teams that we played in the conference, Al Rotella, Frank Close, Teddy, Andy Durbrow, those were all great high school coaches. The Suburban Conference was a great conference, one of the best in the state at that time. You had, from that conference, you always had at least 2 or maybe 3 state champions out of that conference.
Well, what other aspects of the old Suburban Conference made it special? Do you think it was the proximity of the communities? Or?
I think it was because we used to have a golf tournament. The Suburban Conference coaches would have a golf tournament. Matt Moriello and I ran that. Matt from Milburn. Sure. We ran that golf tournament every year, and socially we got together. It's not like that in the conferences now. It's very, very different, and I miss that. And most people say to me, "I miss the old Suburban Conference." I said, "Exactly. So do I. A lot of people do."
Absolutely. Of course, you'd see the people that you competed against, the coaches. There was continuity and stability with the coaches. You mentioned Al Rotello before,
Yeah.
Frank Close, Howie Anderson here in
Howie
Summit.
Anderson, right? Yeah.
You know, great people, well respected within the community.
Yes.
Speaking of the community, in New Providence, you are revered. Not as much for your great successes on the field, but maybe even more so for off the field, the influences that you've had on so many people and so many players. Where did that come from? Where did the ability to connect come from?
Well, I think a lot of times some of the young coaches treat the kids as objects. And I always like to treat the kids the way I would want to be treated. So even if a kid wasn't a great athlete, those are the kids I like to work with more who aren't great athletes. Because the great athletes will fit in and take care of themselves pretty much. You just have to guide them. But you know, that to me is key to connect with the kids. If you show your interest in them, and they could see right through you right away if you're lying and not telling the truth. And I never did that with a kid. I always was right up front with them, and I got the same response back. So you respect them, and they're going to respect you.
Well, even though you had so many successes up at New Providence, anybody who's been in coaching, especially for as long as you have, at one point or another, there's going to become criticism.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, how do you sustain the ability to forge forward during the difficult years?
Well, one thing I always said, you don't bring your problems home. You don't bring my football problems home or my teaching problems home. And the same, you don't bring your family problems to work. You leave those family problems at home. So you got to separate the two. And you know, I think that's a big part of it also. Over the years, you know, I've had people who disagreed with me, and right up front with them, I say, your son's that. Why isn't my son playing more? Why isn't he starting? First of all, he's not better than the kid who's playing there, and maybe he's doing something in practice that we don't like. You know, he's not giving that effort that we need to have. But I said, everybody gets a shot. They get the shot. If they don't do the job, then we put somebody else in there. But if you're up front with them and let them know that they need to do this, they need to do that, I think, you know, that kind of quiets down a little bit.
Well, one of the other consistencies that you've had, more so than the majority of the staffs in the state of New Jersey, is that you've had longtime assistants. Do you want to expand?
Yes.
Do you want to expand on some of that?
Well, you go back to 1963. I remember I was a supervisor at the playground in Madison, and the athletic director said that I'm going to send a person up there who teaches in the system and would like to coach. So at that time, I was the only coach they had. So in comes Don Carpenter at the playground in Madison. So I interviewed him right there at the playground. We talked, and he had played at Gettysburg, and we started the program just the two of us. We for 2 years, just the two of us coaching. We had like 50, 55 kids, and we had even our field wasn't ready, so we had to go down to one of the office buildings and use their lawn to practice on. But he was with me for 34 years, and he became athletic director for a while, and he couldn't coach. And then last year he came back, so he coached. He wanted to coach one more year, so he did, and he's retired. But he was with me for all those years and most of my wins. The other one is Artie Catano. 34 years, Artie played for us. In fact, he played in that big Summit game with Willie Wilson, and he's head basketball coach and assistant football. And this year he deserves most of the credit for our offense, getting it organized and making our kids execute it properly. Then we have Pat Bottone, who's my nephew. He's been with us 24 years. He teaches at Bloomfield and coaches at New Providence. So we have a couple new ones. We had Ed Cummings, who taught us, coached 7 years, and now he retired. Go see his sons play. Chris Broder, who played for me, he was on the '89 undefeated team. He coaches with us, and we have a new guy from GL that we let in the system.
You let him in the system.
Vinny Carlangio. He's doing a great job. He's a nice young coach, he's going to be a good one.
Just don't let him out, so he'll tell the secrets over
right,
your rival there,
keep him in our
Governor
place.
Livingston. Frank, so many great coaches that you've coached against and have observed even as a fan in other sports. What coaches in the state have you admired over the years?
Oh, quite a few. Ted Monica was great he got, organization. I got that from Ted, organization, be organized, never let the kids on the field unprepared. You got Ed Sadlock at Cedar Grove, did a great job down there. Bob Taylor at Burley and then Johnson, he did a great job. And then within our conference, the ones I mentioned before, they were, that was probably the best competition we've had was right within our conference.
The old suburban conference.
The old
that you were
suburban
talking
conference,
about.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, we've had a few guests here, including Gil Moran, who's worked at the Summit program for years, who also has said the same thing.
Yeah.
Frank, looking back again, at this long career, if you were to advise a young coach today, getting involved in the sport, what type of advice would you give him to obviously carry on and sustain like you did all these years?
Well, last night at our meeting at Rutgers was a young coach there, and he was looking to get a job. So I said to him, have you coached before? He said, no, but I want to get into it. I says, well, if you can't get a paying job, volunteer. So get your name out there so they could, they know who you're interested in, you could coach, and you want to get into the system. It's tough for new coaches. I think I'm fortunate. They like to put in the time. Well, I let them coach. I run the program, but each coach has their responsibilities, and they coach. So I think that's what they like about being at New Providence, coaching. And some of them get too impatient. They get too impatient, and even calling plays, they get too impatient. They go down the field, march down the field. Before you know it, they're throwing a bomb, and they get intercepted. So I tell them you got to be patient when you're coaching and move up the ladder. They want to start at the top. I was an assistant for 7 years before I got a head coaching job, and that makes a difference. There's a lot involved just beside going on the field on Saturday. There's a lot involved.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, you've won 15 conference championships?
Yes, 15.
And you've had so many great players, and you've highlighted a few. And, it's very difficult for a coach because I understand that, you probably have strong feelings for all of them. Why don't we just highlight on some of the careers that some of the gentlemen have had after they left you?
Well, Bob Woodruff, who became a starting quarterback at Syracuse for 2 years, and he had quite a career up there. Then the next would probably be Richard Alaco on our 72 team. That's the team Artie Catano played with also. And then 74, 74. Now those were just offensive players. They didn't play defense. 74, we had Paul Joyce. I think Sid Kitson was on that team, 74, 75.
Sid went on to play for
Green Bay, Wake Forest first, and then Green Bay. He had, I think, 7 years with Green Bay and 1 year with Dallas. So he went on from that team. And then 76, we had Blackwell, who was, again, offensive player. Then I had some players who are full-time players. And somebody said, how can you pick a player? I said, I can't do that. They're different categories. So you get a guy like Dennis Lonergan, who was a quarterback and an inside linebacker. He played all the time. He was on the field all the time. And you get Anthony Pignio, who was a running back. He led the state in scoring, I believe, 1 year. Had the extra point and field goal record, 190 points for years. He played safety, ran back punts, kicked extra points, punted. I mean, he did everything. Now this year we have, we go to 88, 89, and 90, and our principal played in that championship team, Paul Casarico. He was a principal, and Chris Broder. So we had that span of 31 in a row, and after you win 10 or 15, you say, I don't know, when's this going to happen? When are we going to lose? And we went from the first game of 1 year all through undefeated, and then we lost the last game the third year, so that's how we got to 31. But we had guys like the Pignos in there, all the Pignos, Casarico, and they all became successful as principals, lawyers, and Woodruff became a lawyer. And then this present team, I mean, we have guys like Vinny Fischetto. I mean, he compares. He's on the field all the time. I mean, he does it all for us. Run back punts, kickoffs, blocked a field goal, intercepted a pass for a touchdown, made a game-saving tackle in the Lincoln game on the championship game. And we got Zach Troutman, who's another football player that led the team in tackles. Now, I never had a tackle lead the team in tackles, so we must have been doing something right there with him. But you know, it's hard to say. But I would lean toward the guys who play both ways, that were on special teams and everything there. But the others were great athletes also.
Well, we know that you've had a great statistician all these years, and we're going to talk about that person in just a second. But the ones that you never talk about is that you are the 2010 Star Ledger Coach of the Year. New Jersey is so rich in talent and tradition. And do you ever sit back and think that you are the fourth winningest coach in the state? And what does that mean to you?
Sometimes I do. Like right now, I'm still on cloud nine from our game with Lincoln. And by the way, Lincoln's team was great. I mean, they were disciplined, and their coach does a great job with them. And there was no mouthing off. Those kids just played hard football. And it's a tribute. I saw the coach last night at our meeting, and that was a great tribute to them. And our kids both teams just played, you know.
Well, Coach, you know, and again, let's talk about that statistician. What exactly was the role of the statistician over the last 30 years?
Oh boy! Beside cooking, I put in the paper, and she does all the stats. I mean, she's got it down play by play and quarter by quarter, the time when the drive started. So she goes right back, and the papers love her because she's very efficient and very precise about that.
Well, we should clarify, she is your wife.
She is my wife. Betsy's been doing this for years, and she gives me great support in everything that I do. And she's just tremendous. The kids love her, and I think they love her for another reason, for her banana cream pies, because at our picnic she makes about 8 of them. And they don't remember the steak, they don't remember the chicken or the hamburger. They know the banana cream pie going to be there again this year. So she's supported me 100% all the way, and I really appreciate that, and saved me a lot of time at home that they call, I don't even ask for me. They ask for Betsy to give them the stats. So that was good.
Well, Coach, with just a few minutes left, some quick questions. You win the state championship, and you're right, the Lincoln coach was very gracious afterwards, and he was very happy for you on that victory. You end the game, you have, similar to Thanksgiving, you have 250 of your alumni football players waiting for you. What did that feel like? So many different ages and generations waiting for you.
There by the decades. First of all, they said, they didn't tell me all those players were going to be there. They said there'll be a couple from each decade, right? So when I came out and we're looking down there, it looked like a mob scene in the end zone. They were all over the end zone. And then I went out to the middle of the field with our athletic director, Rob Harmer, and they started coming out by the decades. And I shook hands with all of them, just about, and most of them I recognized. Some names, because they're coming by so fast, you can't process it that fast. But that was unbelievable. That was so exciting. And, one good thing about this team, too, with all the publicity and all the distraction, they kept their focus. They could have very easily, like Thanksgiving Day, with all that going on, they were like the last thing to come out, the team, And this was their game.
Yeah.
They handled it very well.
So it was a mature team. It was a very
Yes,
mature
it was.
team. And Coach, you've been active. You've been coaching all these years. You were involved with the ski club. Frank Bottone, people like Frank Bottone don't stop. What are you going to do now with the retirement of the football?
I'll probably go see my grandson, who's going to be, Giovanni. He's going to be a freshman at Livingston High School. So I'll go see him, and I'll come back and see New Providence play. They're not going to get rid of me that easily. And I'll probably go see some of the kids who are playing in college, go see them play. So we have 6 or 7 kids that are playing in local colleges that I could see in driving distance, and play a lot of golf.
Are you going to get on skis again?
I'm going to get on skis once more, because I want to go with my 13-year-old once more, because all the grandchildren I did teach how to ski, and Betsy, I taught her how to ski, right? So she was having trouble the first lesson. I was going to take the skis away from her. No, but she's a good skier now. Well, she's in control, not like me.
Yeah. Well, Coach Frank Bottone, I will tell you, you have influenced so many people's lives, and you've added such a great service to New Providence, the school. You've represented in great class, and I think everybody is very happy for the way your career has ended. And we thank you very, very much for joining the Coach's Corner.
That's mutual. I got a lot out of everybody that I coached, really.
Well, we look forward to staying in touch in the future.
Good. Thank you.
And thank you for joining the Coach's Corner.